Hi guys, so in this video I'm going to talk about how I care for my roaches, my feeder roaches that you can see here, as well as my pet roaches. And as you can see, there are some big differences in the way that I keep them. The feeder roaches are in a larger enclosure and they've got lots of egg crates in there to provide lots of hiding spaces, as well as cardboard tubes. And you can just see them at the minute feeding on some orange that I've put in. But yeah, we'll come back to feeding in a minute. Whereas pet roaches, I give them a smaller enclosure because there's only 2 roaches in there. Well, there was only 2, but again, we'll come back to that in a minute. So yeah, the pet roaches, I like to use the Eco-Earth substrate like I do for my tarantulas, and put a piece of cork bark in there. Or I think there's actually 2 pieces in there, and they usually hide in between them both. Or as you can see, this one at the minute is just sitting out in the open. And to care for these roaches, very easy. Just keep a dish down here that has the dry food in. It's got crushed up cat food, muesli and a few fish flakes in there as well. And then once or twice a week I put a piece of fresh fruit in there, like orange, which provides the moisture that they need. Also just adds variety to the diet. Now if you wanted to, you could use water gel instead of the fruit, or you could use water gel and the fruit, with the water gel being a constant source of moisture for the cockroaches. But I've found that just the fresh fruit every few days works well for me. Now then, when it comes to the feeder roaches, you can see them all crying around their orange still. I've actually got 3 dishes in there, and that's because these guys love the protein. So they've got 1 dish for the fruit, 1 dish for the muesli and the fish flakes, and another one just for the cat food. Now I haven't had these for very long, so I'm not sure just how much protein they'll get through, but as you can see, they're tucking into that cat food pretty nicely. So every few days provide a piece of fresh fruit, and I would give them a slice of orange. That's definitely their favourite. Or you can also use slices of carrot or apple. Cucumber also goes down quite well, as does banana. So yeah, it's good to provide variety for them, which will end up in your tarantulas in the end, or whatever you're going to feed the cockroaches to. Whereas the dry food dishes just need filling up once they become empty. And you can actually see there's a cockroach there feeding on a piece of dry fruit from the muesli. So I'm guessing dry fruit's another favourite of theirs. And yeah, you can't really see the fish flakes, they've been scattered around the place and eaten. So I'm guessing they're also quite popular. Now, as you probably noticed, I do use a substrate with my feeder roaches, and that is 100% wheat bran. It's fine as long as it doesn't get wet, otherwise you might get mould growing in there, which is the reason for the dishes. And it's also a lot easier to remove the uneaten food in the dishes than it is to try and get it out the bottom of the enclosure. And the other reason I provide substrate is, as that little nymph's just demonstrated, they do like to burrow in it. Now there's only probably ½ an inch worth in the bottom, and I think it just helps to keep the smell down, and I just think it looks a bit better with the substrate being in there, and of course provides another food source for them because they will eat it along with the other grains and food that I provide. So as long as they've got food and moisture and a place to hide, your roaches will be happy. The only other thing they need is heat, and I provide that with a heat mat which just runs along one side of the enclosure. So that's actually on the shelf where I keep them. Whereas my pet roaches, I actually don't provide a heat source for them. I just keep them at room temperature. And I think this will mean that they will live slightly longer than they would do normally, which isn't a bad thing because these are just pets. And I thought it would be slightly too cold for them to breed, until when I put the piece of orange in a few days ago, it was covered in small babies. So even though there's only 2 roaches, they have actually bred. And next I'll find one of the babies to show you. Okay, well I found one of the babies there. You can see they are very small, and they do like to burrow around in the substrate, which means I've got no idea how many I've actually got in there. I guess only time will tell. And from what I've been reading, there'll be around 20 to 30 in there, I think. And then in another 9 months' time, they will be this size. So yeah, very large, impressive looking roaches. And they make pretty cool pets if you ask me. So that's how I care for my pet roaches. You can see the big female there just coming to say hello. And yeah, the feeder roaches, slightly different, but both ways work pretty well. The other thing I forgot to mention about the feeder roaches is that they do like to be kept in the dark, or at least in a shaded area. And especially if you're trying to breed them as a colony, they do like their privacy when it comes to breeding. And if they are disturbed, they can actually abort egg cases, which is never a good thing if you're trying to get a colony going. But these are all nymphs anyway at the moment, so no breeding taking place yet. So to make sure it stays dark in there, I've got an old pair of boxer shorts that I just place on top of the enclosure, or at least the top half of the enclosure, and that keeps it a lot darker in there, and also covers up some of the ventilation, because there is actually probably slightly too much in there for these roaches. And then I just place that against the heat mat, and that's the setup pretty much complete. Okay, well that's about it for this video. This was actually a request by Daniel Oakley, who's got some pretty nice videos of his own, so I'll put his link in the description, and I'd recommend that you go and check him out. He's got some very nice videos on his tarantulas, and also he's got some old ones on camel spiders that he used to keep, and I think he is planning to get more this year, so that will be pretty interesting to watch out for. Okay then guys, hope you've enjoyed watching, and I shall see you again soon.